Hello and welcome to the Podquest of Bread. My name is Henry Conley. Tonight I want to talk about theocracies, and I want to talk about the United States and what the most recent Supreme Court appointment by Donald Trump means for this country. So anybody that hasn't been paying attention over the last couple days, it's been widely speculated that Amy Coney Barrett was going to be appointed to the Supreme Court by Donald Trump, and today he did it. This presents a concern, a major concern to many groups of people, and people who just overall believe in the rights that people have currently, the rights to their body, the right to health care, LGBTQ rights, just general GSM rights. But before I get into that, I want to talk about theocracies, and I want to talk about the historical nature of theocracies, and I want to talk about what their danger is. So theocracies, we've seen them throughout history. A lot of European countries operated off of a theocracy. It was all based upon religious theory and religious texts. People who were of that religion were recognized as superior to those who were not. They generally had better rights. Theocracies we see today that exist are generally Arabic countries who operate under a Arabic law theocracy and generally follow some pretty harsh punishments. Of course, that is their choice. That's how they operate. But here in the United States, we have something called separation of church and state, which is supposed to prevent the church and religious teachings from controlling the legal matters and our government. The separation of church and state is in theory supposed to stop a theocracy from existing in the United States of America. Of course, this has never in practice been perfect. We have seen many people's rights quashed down throughout the years of this country existing due to religious sentiment, specifically Christian beliefs. We have seen LGBT rights, GSM rights that have just now in the recent 50 years become more mainstream, and even in the recent 20 years actually become legal. We have seen women's rights quashed down by religious beliefs. The reason women couldn't vote until the women's suffrage movement actually had success was because the religious systems in place and the doctrines upon which this country had learned made women less than men. Minorities for many years in this country were viewed as less than men or less than us because they weren't of our religion. They weren't of our faith that this country says that we operate under. And a specific topic has always been of religious contest, which is abortion rights. And the famous case, Roe v. Wade, one who RBG had her hands in and fought for and brought to life. There are some scary things to think about when you think about this appointment to the Supreme Court. I myself, as a religious minority in this country, I don't use my religious views to influence how I act and what I say and what I share. But this appointment by Donald Trump of Amy Coney Barrett is actually a very disturbing one because she's long had issues separating her religious beliefs from her actual doctrine, her legal doctrine, and her legal cases. She has long used her religious belief, the people of praise, this core group of Catholics, to influence and to control her beliefs and her rulings on legal cases. Now, before I get into some more on that, I want to talk about what I thought was a very horrid, shameful kind of play against RBG, where Donald Trump, in appointing Mrs. Barrett, Judge Barrett, the Rose Garden was decked in flags. And this had a very similar look to the 1993 nomination ceremony of the late Ginsburg. I think this was 100% done by choice, by plan for Donald Trump. The appointment of Barrett will lead to the actual destruction of the things that RBG fought for. And so he's appointing his Ginsburg, the Ginsburg in his eyes that will bring forth the religious majority that he appeals to. So by decking the rose garden out in the way he did, he's appealing to them. He's getting them looking at her as this magnificent appointment, because RBG, the late RBG, was also a magnificent person. So he's trying to contrast the two. Barrett's the new RBG. She's the one that's going to bring forth the real American patriotic way. It's just a key takeaway I have on this. But Donald Trump did have this to say about Barrett. I looked and I studied, and you are very eminently qualified for this job. You are going to be fantastic. He wants to hammer in this idea that she is going to be a fantastic Supreme Court judge. And now this conservative Supreme Court, this heavily weighted conservative Supreme Court, will now be everything that he expects. See, the religious right, they've been pushing for a lot of things for years, and they haven't been able to do it because you had a voice like RBG's on the Supreme Court. Now with her gone, and now with a potential new conservative voice in Barrett on the Supreme Court, he can finally, and the religious right can finally, tear down the things and the structures which give rights and freedoms to people that didn't have them before. See, I fear this potential American theocracy that will be built here, because if Donald Trump loses in 2020, this will have a lasting impact on the next 20, 30, 40, even 50 years of American politics. This doesn't end when Donald Trump leaves the White House, whether it be 2021 or 2025. It doesn't end there. Donald Trump's legacy will be cemented because of his appointments, this final one potentially being Barrett. Women's rights will be all but washed down the drain. All the gains that women have had over the control of their bodies will be pretty much washed down the drain. And I don't care if you're pro-choice or pro-life. I'm personally pro-choice. But the thing is that the United States government should have absolutely zero control over a woman's body, over a free person's body. And that's just one of the things we are talking about here. We are talking about having the findings of Roe v. Wade, which, and I will quote it here, the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction, all but cementing the right for a woman to control her very own body. But see, the concern I have with rolling back Roe v. Wade goes beyond that. It goes way beyond that. I've seen female friends of mine talking about how they are getting ready to stock up on birth control because they're afraid of what not only the rolling back of Roe v. Wade would have as an effect on birth control, but also something else I'm going to mention here. But I just want to wrap up this little bit about Roe v. Wade. Because, as I said, no matter whether you are pro-life or pro-choice, you should always affirm the fact that the government should never have the control over a free individual's body. Whether your religious beliefs make you not ever want to have an abortion or never want your wife to have an abortion, that doesn't mean that you have control over someone else's body and choices. It's an argument that the right often uses when it comes to guns. Well, if you don't like guns, don't buy them. Well, I pose this to you. If you don't like abortions, don't get them, but don't make them illegal for someone else to get. And don't make the safe and effective access to birth control next to impossible for someone seeking it. Now, I mentioned birth control because it leads me into the second thing that I'm afraid of occurring if Barrett is actually confirmed. And that would be the rolling back of the Affordable Care Act. Now, the Affordable Care Act is not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it did do a lot for people with pre-existing conditions. People with pre-existing conditions under the Affordable Care Act could not be denied coverage. This actually made things so much easier for people to get access to the healthcare and to take care of things they were suffering from that private health insurance companies typically would deny you for. But beyond that, I can connect this back to Roe v. Wade also. Under the Affordable Care Act, it helped further access to birth control for women. It helped further fund Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, which for anybody watching this, does more in women's health for birth control, mammograms, and many other typical health checks for women than it does abortions. In fact, Planned Parenthood's abortion side is not even federally funded. But the religious right does not want to see this. They don't understand that. They've never looked into this because for them, Planned Parenthood is an abortion. I hate to say it that way, but it's an abortion to their beliefs. Trump's been very specific to set this argument up. He signed into law an executive order saying that all babies that survive abortions must be provided health care. It's already setting up this idea that abortion is such a vile thing that the government must step in. Again, they shouldn't, and they shouldn't have the right. My further fear with this is that rolling back a program that provides healthcare to those with pre-existing conditions during a global pandemic is dangerous. It's dangerous to the health of the United States because those who are poor and those who struggle in every other form of life, the Affordable Care Act helps them ensure that they have access to healthcare. And via that, if they were to become infected with COVID, they would be guaranteed that they have access to the healthcare they need without incurring massive medical debt. Rolling that back, I fear, would lead to an increase in infections and an increase of death in this country. But my last fear, and my last fear of an American theocracy being set up by a conservative-weighted Supreme Court, falls on those in the GSM community, the LGBTQ community. Because at stake are the federal recognition of LGBT GSM marriages. At stake is the recognition of the existence of trans people. Many trans people that I'm friends with and I care about. I have a trans YouTuber that I follow, and she was talking about how she's trying to rush as fast as she can to schedule her sexual reassignment surgery so that way she can get it done before it possibly is no longer legal for her to do it here in the United States. That is huge because this is potentially blockading the very identity of a person. Now, I know that's a very contentious topic. A lot of people say that, well, their identity is flawed. They were born a man. They must be a man. But see, here's the thing. CAT scan images of their brain will show that their brain identifies or is structured like the gender they identify with. And that's the thing to remember. that these people are trapped in a body that their brain doesn't even structurally look like, and that these types of surgery, these types of gender reaffirming surgeries, are crucial to their mental health. What I fear with a rollback of any of these massive protections and these massive gains in their civil liberties is the increase in suicides due to their mental anguish, an increase in just absolute depression, suicidal thoughts, all because they cannot get the surgery that reaffirms the gender they identify with. That scares me. That pains me. Now, with this appointment, there is a positive. And I didn't see it coming, but I am hoping that it does succeed. For anybody that doesn't know, Supreme Court justices, they are there for life. They don't have a term limit. They serve from the time they're confirmed to the time they either retire or, in RBG's case, pass away. Now, House Democrats have introduced a bill. They've introduced legislation to set term limits on Supreme Court justices. I wholeheartedly support this legislation because maybe for once we can actually have a steady rotation on the judicial branch of the United States. It is the only branch without term limits. In the executive branch, your term limits are 2 terms of 4 years. In the legislative branch, you at least have a designated amount of time that you serve before you are possibly kicked out of office via election. Putting term limits on the Supreme Court would be a perfect solution to what we are facing here, which could be a 30 to 50 year fight for the very rights that people have gained in the last 20 years. Further, the Democrats have a very interesting position here, where they could theoretically stack the Supreme Court if they decided to. Because now that the precedent of not appointing a Supreme Court justice in the final year of a president's term has been broken, now the Democrats have something to go at it with and to actually demand more seats. Now, what do we do? What do we, the American people, do? I always try to close these podcasts out with something positive. What do we do? And it's going to sound the same as everything else I've ever said. We take to the streets. We make sure our voices are heard. We make sure that they're uncomfortable, that they know we're upset, that we are mad. We need to make sure that they understand that we do not accept this, that this is wrong. Because the President of the United States appointing someone like Barrett, that goes against what the majority of this country has been standing for. So go out, make your voices heard, and make sure you're not silenced. Demand change. Demand RBG be honored. Put pressure on your House of Rep, or on your senators, I apologize. Put pressure on your senators to maybe decide not to appoint or to nominate Barrett. Anyway, stay beautiful, humans.